Okay, I think we're getting closer now. Okay, I think maybe I'm live now. We'll find out. All right, so let's see here. I tried to go live on Instagram, couldn't make it happen because Instagram wouldn't let me log in. So let's see here. Let's try YouTube here and figure out if I can watch these comments from there. Actually, maybe I can get the comments playing from YouTube. Show comments on stage. Is that there? Does that allow me? Okay. Okay, so there should be a live event happening right now on YouTube, I would think. Let's find out. Live. Okay, this does appear to be happening, so I'm going to go into this thing here. All right, nice. All right, so I wanted to pop out the chat here and welcome everyone to this week's Mandarin Blueprint Lite Q&A. Super excited to be with you guys this week. One day I'll figure out the tech on this and it won't be such a conundrum each time. I feel like each time I do this, I think that I've figured it out and then I go to do it and it doesn't behave as I expect it to. And so it's all right. So anyway, it's all good if I do this. All right. Hello. Hi. Phil Crimmins here from Mandarin Blueprint. Happy to be with you today. And so here's how it works. We will cover any questions that you have. And just to show you here, this is the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community. There are some folks already there's just been people leaving some comments here. And of course, we are able to ask questions here in school. So, all right. For me, it worked to enter and exit again. Yeah, no, I mean, you guys, I got started late today because I was struggling with the tech. So for those of you who are wondering, why can't I get in? It's just a matter of, I was unfortunately delayed trying to get this to stream to YouTube. All right. So let's, here, I'll share my screen on Zoom as well. So some of you are watching on Zoom, some of you are watching on YouTube. All of you who are a part of Mandarin Blueprint Lite can be here on the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community. If you're not in the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community, just go ahead and go to mandarinblueprint.com and you can sign up and join. It's free. You get free access to the first 20 levels of our courses and we can go from there. So I'm paying attention now to, let's see, Zoom. I know that you said that the chat was disabled there. There's plenty of places you can see what I have to say, but I will still nonetheless enable the chat for the people here in the webinar, in the Zoom webinar. And okay, that's interesting. So, it says maybe I'm not streaming on YouTube. I mean, it looks like I am. I think I am streaming on YouTube. So I think we're okay there. All right. So any questions this week that have come up regarding your Chinese learning? While I wait for that, I'll see if there are any interesting posts. Andrea says, tones are hard. I've made it to level 3. The Henze method is very helpful for remembering tones. I always forget what tone I am supposed to use. That's right. Yeah. So I think with the Henze movie method, you can usually get a pretty clear sense of the tones. And, you know, the reason for this has a lot to do with the problem with tones is usually not that you just can't remember a tone. right? I think that's not usually the problem. Usually the problem is that people, the problem is they don't remember which tone is associated with which character, right? So I could say something like, you know, 我 oh, come on, iPad. You can't just change my handwriting like that. Oh, let me turn that off. That function off. Oh, let me just like change the handwriting I was doing. Turn that function off. I think there's like a yes. Don't auto refine handwriting, please. Thank you. Okay. And so if you were to say something like 我住在 我住在奥斯汀 or 奥斯汀. Either one is fine. If the problem that people have with tones is not so much that they can't produce them, because you produce the tones all the time in English, but you're not certain of what the tone is. This could be pronounced one of two ways. But anyway, the point is, if you're not sure, is it ao or is it s or s or is it ding or ding, right? That's really the problem. The problem is more that you just can't remember. And so if that's what happens, you just can't remember it, then you're kind of pushing yourself into a circumstance where, you know, you are trying to produce sounds that you're not 100% on. And so you kind of just flub it. Especially if I add in Texas, 德克萨斯州的奥斯汀，我住在德克萨斯州的奥斯汀, right? And so if I am not sure what is the tone that I'm supposed to be saying here, well, you're going to end up in a circumstance where you just flub it. 我住在德克萨斯州的奥斯汀. Right. And they'll be like, what? What did you say? And the problem was that you can't say ting or you can't say duh. No, it's not. That's not really the problem. The problem is you're not sure. And that uncertainty. And by the way, uncertainty in English, we make a second tone for uncertainty because that's what you do at the end of a question, you know? And so as a result, that's what often happens for folks. All right. Okay. All right. So let's see if there's any questions that have come up in the main thread here. If you don't have anybody in real life to talk to, how can I practice my speaking? Well, that's a good question. I mean, the premise is that there's nobody to talk to, right? This is the idea. Nobody to talk to. And I don't know. I don't think that that's true because we have the internet. So I do think that, like, I mean, you know, you're able to connect remotely with lots of people. And then there's things like you've got programs like Hello Talk, or not programs, language exchange options like Hello Talk or Tandem. Those are just two, and there are many others. If you just type in language exchange on your app store on your phone, you'll find a ton of people. And I happen to know that Hello Talk, which is just one option, that I think it's originally a Chinese company, and they have like 10-to-1 Mandarin speakers to English speakers, and they would love to talk to you, right? Like they would love to get a chance to practice their English. So I would argue that there are people to talk to. That said, there's also plenty of things that you can do on your own that are super helpful, right? So if, for example, if you want to do something like, you could do listen and repeat. Hugely helpful. Listen and repeat's great because it is a chance for you to just try to mimic. Don't worry so much about saying things perfectly. Just try to sound like they sound. And then, you can do things like our pronunciation mastery course, or the free version is our YouTube video on pronunciation. And that will give you clarity on exactly what it is that you want to do with your tongue and how to produce the tones and all of that. And then you mimic. You just use those principles and then mimic. So that's one thing you can do. Number two is you can do shadowing, which is kind of the next step. And shadowing is basically like speak and listen, at the same time. And so this is hard to demonstrate because in order to do it, you have to like listen and speak, and you have to hear both things. But the point is that like listen and repeat would be 我住在奥斯汀 我住在奥斯汀 voice one 我住在奥斯汀 voice two 我住在奥斯汀 and then just try to say it at the same time as the recording. That's really helpful for building up your speaking skills. Now 3, self-talk. Right? So this is where there's a number of ways you can do self-talk, but one thing that's very basic and that you can always do literally is talk about what's presently happening, right? Because that's the only place we ever really exist to get all Buddhist on you guys. But also whatever you're doing, there's a way to try to narrate it. You can you try to narrate your thoughts, try to narrate the actions you're taking at the moment. 我用一支笔 表演一下怎么学习中文，然后我再直播给我的观众看。Right, so I'm just describing what I'm doing right now. I'm using a pencil to give a presentation, and I'm live streaming to my audience. 回答他们的问题 answering their questions. 我上面有一个麦克风，我前面有一个相机, right? I've got above me is a microphone, in front of me is a camera. There's just always opportunities to talk about what's happening in your present. You can spend the end of your day talking to yourself out loud about what you did that day. You can talk about your plan for tomorrow, or if you're waking up in the morning, what's your plan for the day? You can try to tell a story about something that's important to you in your life. You can talk about your job. You'll find the things you don't know how to say by doing this self-talk. And then the fourth is, I'll say AI talk. And by the way, if you're ever struggling for something to say as a topic for self-talk, just prompt an AI, give me some topics to talk about, and it'll give you something. But AI talk is, literally just chat with ChatGPT. And obviously what's nice about this is that it's pretty good. Like it's pretty close to how somebody would actually speak to you, but it gives you, there's no embarrassment if you don't know what to say, and it gives you time to think. So, there's that option. Then we have conversation, right? With natives. And that's where you can do things like Hello Talk. And so language exchange apps and stuff like that. But you'll notice the first 4 don't require anybody, right? And I'll also mention that you can use active recall flashcards are really good for helping you with speaking, because active recall flashcards are where you're prompted by something. It could be English, right? It could be like an English sentence and you're supposed to translate it. But even if you didn't have a translation, it could just be a picture of something that you associate with a phrase. And then you just, after you see the picture or you see the English, you're supposed to, as quickly as possible, produce the Chinese, because that mimics the skill you're trying to develop in natural conversation. So that's actually 5 things. And then only the 6th one is actually talking with natives. So if there are 5 things you can do to prepare to talk to natives, and then there's also talking to natives, and you can get access to those natives via language exchange apps, then essentially you're not lost at sea without a paddle. There's plenty of things you can do, even if you don't have somebody to talk to right away. Hopefully that's helpful. Natasha is getting to the end of pronunciation mastery. There's a lot of top-down words to remember as I'm new to Chinese. Any tips? What's the best moment hereafter to start MSLK next to the main course, and at what level? That's a good question. So first of all, so when it comes to our courses, and so first of all, I'm gonna go ahead and try to keep good notes here. So this was the question about. That was the question about where to speak. Let's now talk about some of the Mandarin Blueprint courses. Okay, so when you enter our courses, we have a few different ones, right? So we have pronunciation mastery. Just call that PM. We have Mandarin speaking and listening Kickstarter, MSLK. We have, really should have made those green considering this, but that's all right. We have the blueprint. Okay. And then we have the Mandarin Immersion Masterclass. Cool. Then we have the phrase vault. Okay. And we have other things that are like sort of ancillary courses like the accelerator. This, and I mean, I'm saying that as if it is some kind of, is that how you spell accelerator, or is it ER? Oh, whatever. This is, I say it like it's an auxiliary course. It's a very important course. It helps you set out your whole pace of learning Chinese and all that good stuff, but it's more like habit building. So it's more like mindset and how to stay on top of all that stuff. But it's important to recognize like what these things are and how to use them and what are their goals, right? So, and in fact, I would maybe, there's a couple ways you could think about this, but I could maybe, I thought maybe there was a way I could change that color, but I guess not. Oh, can I? I can change the color. Okay, great. So this would be, let's make this green, because the thing about these is that they are actually bottom-up courses, and then these are top-down courses. So green is top-down. Green is bottom up, blue is top down. And then we can also say that, let's say, keep thinking. These are about speaking. These are about understanding. And of course, this is mindset. So, when you finish the pronunciation mastery course, well, what have you been working on? Well, you've been doing a bottom-up course relating to speaking primarily, right? Obviously, having good pronunciation helps your listening. Every character has a pronunciation, so if you understand pinyin, it helps your reading, right? But it's primarily trying to get you better at sounding correct. But it's like the theory and not the practice. So Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter is essentially the continuation of speaking, but trying to practice it more. So in pronunciation mastery, you learned how to dribble a basketball, how to pass a basketball, how to shoot a basketball, how to have the right footwork. But then Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter is taking the shots, it's doing the dribbles, it's going to the foul line, it's taking your three-pointers, right? It's like, it's the actual practice as opposed to just the theory. Here's how to know if you're doing it wrong, because you don't want to practice wrong. Practicing wrong is just going to ingrain bad mistakes. But if you practice correctly, then you can be certain that you're not wasting your time. So pronunciation mastery is meant to make sure you're practicing correctly, and then Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter is the practice, and so is the phrase vault for that matter. However, the problem you run into with just spoken language in Chinese is that there's only about 400 or so syllables. So you have about 400 and some people say 409, some people say 420. I don't know exactly why there's debate over this, but it's around this number. And so that's the syllables. And this is a problem, right? So if there's only 400 or so syllables, then you're going to have basically too many homophones. So too many sounds that are exactly the same. For reference, English has about 16,000 syllables, right? So you need to learn to read so that you can make distinctions between things like, we could have this versus this. Okay. These two characters, as I'm sure you can see, they don't look anything alike, but they're both pronounced "t." Okay. So if you don't know the characters, you're going to hear "t," and you're not going to know, am I talking about a chicken or am I talking about muscle? Right. And if you know the characters, you have no problem. They don't look the same. Right. So this is why it's really important to learn characters. And that's what the blueprint focuses on a ton. And in some sense, though, the characters are merely the stepping stone to getting into reading. Reading is what gets you into comprehensible input. Comprehensible input is what allows you to understand the language, but you must activate what you've understood. So we go back to MSLK, TPV, and actually all those things I said before about how to practice speaking, right? But in terms of how our courses function, the blueprint, learning characters and words and building from the bottom up, pronunciation mastery to make sure you're not practicing your speaking wrong, Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter, and the phrase vault to make sure that you practice the speaking. And then the only one I haven't mentioned yet is the Mandarin Immersion Masterclass in terms of the core curriculum, which is essentially further comprehensible input. Now, I don't think that immersing very early is all that beneficial because you don't know too much. But when you get to about level 36 of the blueprint, we recommend getting very much into the immersion side of things where you're watching lots of native Chinese content. And so, Natasha, to get to the point here, when you finish pronunciation mastery, you don't need to worry about the top-down words because that's not the focus of pronunciation mastery. It's not trying to help you remember words. It's trying to help you say sounds correctly. We just use common words because it's better to use those words to practice than just randomly picking pinyin syllables and repeating them over and over. That's super boring. So at least we're going to give you some super high frequency words, kind of prime your brain that, hey, these words are going to come up again later. But the blueprint is where you're going to learn those properly. And so after you finish pronunciation mastery, my recommendation is to split your time a little bit between Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter and the blueprint. Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter is 31 lessons. If you did a lesson a day, that would be kind of intensive to do that, but it's doable. But let's just say you do a lesson every 2 days. Okay, you're finished with that in a couple of months. The blueprint is a massive course. It's covering over 3,000 characters, 10,000 plus words. So that's something you're going to be working on for a while. And so it's only a temporary thing relative to your whole learning experience that you'll be doing both MSLK and the blueprint at the same time. And then as you get into levels 30 through 36 of the blueprint, we start unlocking levels of the phrase vault. So actually, the blueprint and the phrase vault are quite linked up. So, they are, for example, like when we look at these two, they're close together because when you learn enough characters, you can unlock a lesson in the phrase vault. So hopefully that clarifies that point for you there. But basically, my answer is after you finish PM, do a mix of MSLK and the blueprint, where MSLK, your attitude is I want to get better at speaking the sounds, at producing the sounds correctly. And then the blueprint, your focus is learning the characters from the bottom up and understanding the language. So hopefully that clarifies this. Okay. Somebody asked on YouTube if I can see their questions, and yes, I can. Then let's see here. What else we got? Mel asks, and by the way, I am prioritizing questions left in the Mandarin Blueprint Lite Q&A. Then I'll go to the webinar chat. Then I will go to YouTube. So that's the order of priority. If you're not in Mandarin Blueprint Lite yet, what are you doing? It's free. You get the first 20 levels of the Blueprint for free, and you get the Mandarin Blueprint Lite school community, which is, have we crossed 30,000 yet? Not quite. We're getting very close. But anyway, going back to this. 30,000 members almost. Okay. Mel says, some of the complex characters are really hard to make out when small. Is there any way people understand the characters even if they don't see them well or have dyslexia? So I don't have dyslexia myself, so I can't comment with 100% certainty. But what I can say is that we have had people with dyslexia in our course comment that after they got to a high enough level of Chinese, they no longer felt like their dyslexia was showing up in the same way as it did with English. So like the letters getting jumbled or the word order getting jumbled didn't happen for them as much with Chinese characters. So obviously there's elements of, with most phones and screens that we have, you can make the text bigger for the most part. That's usually the case. But the point you're making, Mel, about like, is there a way people understand the characters even if they don't see them well? I mean, I don't think that there's a way to do it other than to continue to practice using them, right? I don't see like some alternate way that you would do it. Maybe if you suffer from dyslexia, it would take longer. But on the other hand, like I said, we've had people in the course who've reported, and I can't, this is their report. I don't have dyslexia, so I can't say from firsthand experience, but their reporting is that they have found it easier to read Chinese than English once they get to that level. Next, we have Dr. Paco asking, will you guys eventually offer the services of tutors to practice our basic spoken Chinese? Because I would much rather hire employees from Mandarin Blueprint to practice instead of someone else on another platform. Well, it's a part of the Mandarin Blueprint Elite program. We might roll it out to the rest of Mandarin Blueprint Pro at some point, but it's kind of like Mandarin Blueprint Elite is where we often will test out new ideas and develop systems. And then if the system is strong enough, we could potentially roll out parts of it to Mandarin Blueprint Pro, but we'll see. My thing about tutors is that tutors on their own offer some problems, right? So if you're talking about tutors, there's a few things that you need to take into consideration. So if we consider tutors, right? So one thing you've got to consider when you're dealing with a tutor is, one, their educational philosophy. Which is tricky because if they're a native Chinese speaker, what kind of philosophy are they likely to have? I mean, just think about it logically. Like, how are they likely to see education to an adult non-native speaker when they learned as a child through exposure and just being surrounded by it society-wide? They often don't have a good idea of what they should do. So there's an issue with, characters. There's an issue with pronunciation. How do you teach somebody something? You can tell somebody they're wrong, sure, but if you don't know how to explain it in English, how to produce the sounds correctly, which is kind of complicated to explain from a non-native speaker of English, then they're going to kind of just be like, no, it's this. No, you're still saying it wrong. It's this. No, sorry, it's this. And like, you just have to kind of try to figure it out by trial and error, which is like, you're eventually just going to end up saying something that's acceptable to them and then ingrain a mistake. So this is a problem. but also the result of them not having an educational philosophy often, or not having a clear one, is that they'll rely on textbooks. Now, textbooks offer their own problems, right? Because textbooks will essentially be overly formal. I mean, of course they will be, right? Because a textbook is for school, and a school is not a casual place. It's a formal place, right? It's a place where your formal education happens, right? And so they're often way too focused on written Chinese, on things that are more overtly just overtly formal, essentially, right? And so that's a problem there. It's also created by usually Chinese natives in preparation for tests like the HSK. And also they give teachers a means by which to like sort of grade their students. But I'm a big advocate for not thinking of Chinese learning or language learning in general as being equivalent to an academic subject, but rather more skills, like a skill acquisition thing. Like we don't call basketball or jazz band or, some other sport, fencing. We don't call that a class in school. We call that like an extracurricular activity, and you go to practice. And that doesn't mean that it's not hard or it doesn't require a lot of attention or becoming good through skill and practice, but it's more like coaches, skills, and practice are the better like heuristic for language learning than classrooms, teachers, and studying. I think it's the wrong way to think about it. It's like we're learning a skill here, we're practicing a skill, we're getting used to a skill, and it's not exactly like textbooks are just the wrong medium. So tutors often are getting an X on all three of these, right? So it's hard to find the right one. And so essentially what we're trying to build here at Mandarin Blueprint is something that is a system for understanding the language bottom up, and then teaching natives about what you know, not to teach you Chinese, but saying to them, this member knows these things. Because they know these things, we can be confident that they will that if you have a conversation with them to practice your speaking, that it's not going to go badly because they've done this practice. So just go chat with them. Don't try to teach them Chinese. We'll do that from the bottom up, and even teaching it, we're going to help them get used to Chinese by lots of comprehensible input and speaking practice, but just chat, right? So a conversation partner who is highly aware of what you know is the ideal thing. And then practicing on your own to get better. So what you know is more for the next time. That's, so like, again, going back to what you practice, all of this stuff, I think it was this plus active recall. So essentially you have 5 things you can do and then have conversations with natives, right? So that being the case, I would say that, that's what a tutor should really be. It should be somebody who is just being the conversation partner after you've done all of that other practice. But most tutors try to do everything else. And that is, to me, not a good use of your time, because you end up getting confusing ideas. So hopefully that helps answer that question. Okay. So let me go to the webinar questions and answers. So Mr. or Miss Varga is saying, I wish to ask about the Kickstarter. It's weird I don't know how to write down the word I know. Should I worry about it or not? I'm in level 8, but I learned Chinese already earlier. Okay. So just want to make sure that I clarify what you're asking here. I don't know if your name is pronounced Akos or Akos or something like that, but regardless, let's talk about it. So going back to what I was saying before about the different courses that we have, when you say you're in level 8, I just want to confirm, because we call the I intentionally call these things different names for each of the, I call these things different names for each of the courses so that I cannot get confused. So in pronunciation mastery, I call them units. In the blueprint, I call them levels. And in Mandarin Speaking Listening Kickstarter, I call them lessons. So are you talking about lesson 8 in the Kickstarter? I just want to confirm that first. And if that is what you're talking about, then that would mean that you're not yet working through the blueprint. Alternatively, you may mean that you're working through the blueprint and you're at level 8. But here's the thing. The Kickstarter is not about writing and reading. The Kickstarter it's in the name, Mandarin Speaking and Listening Kickstarter. It's for speaking and listening. So, this characters are what you learn in the blueprint, okay? So the blueprint is for Hanzi. And much more than that, but it's certainly for where you're going to learn the characters. And then we have the speaking and listening Kickstarter here for MSLK. So that's how I would recommend that. Okay, phase 2, level 8. So what you're saying there is that you've gotten to level 8 of the blueprint, which means you don't know that many characters yet. And so as a result, you're not going to understand most of the characters in MSLK yet. But that's fine, because what's in MSLK is not meant to be for memorizing the characters. It's meant to practice the principles of pronunciation mastery. So everything you're working through it. You're figuring it out bit by bit. Okay. So just work through all of them and just make sure you remember what the focus is. In Mandarin Speaking Listening Kickstarter, you're not trying to remember the words. You're just trying to remember who is, how to say the sounds. In the blueprint, you're not trying to get better at speaking specifically. You're trying to understand the language from the written all the way down to the basic. Okay. Now we have a question from Adnan. Well, actually, let me just double check. Okay, yeah, we don't have any more questions in the MB Lite Q&A. So this is from the webinar chat. Admin says, "Hi, Phil. I like you guys very much. Thank you. I just finished level 14. I am planning to go pro soon because I love this method. And my question is, if I finish the 36 levels in 4 months, will this affect my learning or memorization? Apart from making it faster, I don't see how it would hurt. I can certainly say that. So what I mean there is that if you get to level 36 within 4 months in terms of characters, getting there in terms of everything that we have in the blueprint levels 1 through 36 is a bit ambitious. Not impossible, but it might be a bit ambitious. But just the characters is certainly possible. You can do the characters alone and maybe even less than that. And I guess what I'm wondering is, what do you see as the potential disadvantage? It seems like you're just saying get through and learn more in 4 months, and that seems awesome. Seems like pretty unabashedly good. So yeah, I think that's all fine. You should be totally fine. Yeah, here's the question for those of you watching on YouTube. So yeah, I would say that this is totally fine to do that. So yeah. Let me know if you have any further questions about that. Okay. So from what I can see, I think we're caught up on all of the questions. So if you guys have any other questions you want to ask, you can ask on the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community. You can ask in the YouTube chat if you're watching on YouTube. I'm paying attention to that. You can ask on the Zoom question and answers. And if you're watching on YouTube and you don't have access to the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community, you can find that over at mandarinblueprint.com, and you can get that access for free. First 20 levels and the Mandarin Blueprint Lite community. Realistically, how soon will I be fluently speaking with my Chinese lab mates and my Lao Shi? Says Adnan. So if you do everything right, and don't make any wrong turns and don't emphasize anything in particular, you could potentially get there in about 1,000 hours. So like one thing that I always am focused on is 2 things. One, it's the hours, not the years or months, because you can't, we can only ever act within a day, right? You can't act on a year. I can't live a year right now. And really, you can't live a day either, but at least we can kind of conceptualize a day pretty easily because there's a sleep in between. All you can live in is the now. But let's just say we're talking about a day. Well, in a day, you can get a certain amount of hours. That's why I prefer to think about it in terms of hours as opposed to thinking about it in terms of months or years. Now, the next thing is that you have to get the balance correct. So you need to have a certain number of characters under your belt. You have to have a certain amount of comprehensible input, and you have to open your mouth and speak the right ratio. And you need to use the right resources to do that. And so I've talked about the various resources we have here at Mandarin Blueprint, but we have created a little bit of a problem for ourselves, which is that all of these courses are they have a number of different things that are easier and harder to navigate because it's so big. So we've solved a bunch of problems for people: character learning, word learning, getting into sentences, paragraph, stories. We also have speaking and listening options. We have categorical speaking and listening options in the phrase vault. We have courses to help you get your mindset right with the accelerator and habit building boot camp. And we've interviewed language experts and language learning secrets. And we have a pronunciation training that makes sure that you're practicing everything correctly. But getting the balance between all of them correct is sometimes, needs a coach, which is why we built our elite program, because the elite program is essentially somebody who helps you navigate all this, plus helps make custom material on top of that. So yeah, that's basically how it all works there. And so getting to 1,000 hours, if you had a coach, I'd be like 100% confident that you would do it in 1,000 hours. If you don't have a coach, you could be tacking on several hundred hours because you might spend too much time on something that isn't really your issue. And that happens a lot because we like to focus on the things that we're good at. It's just a natural instinct. Like when you do something that you're good at, like if I sit down at the drums and I want to play paradiddle diddles around the drum kit, I'm pretty good at that already, so I can do it easily. But if I want to work on my pataflaflas, by the way, if you've never heard these phrases before, it must sound crazy. But if I want to work on my pataflaflas around the drum kit, well, I'm not as good at that, so I don't feel as good playing it because it's, so I would need a drum teacher to be like, well, I know you don't feel as good playing it, but it's what you need to get better as a drummer. Here's your practice routine, and here's what you need to do. So that makes a big difference in your likelihood of getting the most out of that 1,000 hours. So I hope that makes sense. All right, so let me I'll get back to your next comment there in a moment, Adnan, but I just want to get to question here. Yeah, somebody's asking about how to communicate with native Chinese folks. I did talk about this earlier in the stream, so you can check out the recording for more detail. But Hello Talk or Tandem, those are both language exchange apps on your phone. You can download them now and be talking to a Chinese person probably within 10 minutes. So, one of those is my short answer to that. Okay. All right. So Adnan says, I don't know whether I should say this or not because it's such a formal setting, I guess. I'm so formal here. Can't you tell? But I love you guys. I'm really so happy that I found you guys. Everything here is so perfect. Just a little while ago, I started reading sentences, and I can't tell you how happy I am. I'm planning to leave a video testimonial, but right now I need a haircut, and the barbershops are closed due to Chinese New Year. Yeah, well, thank you there, Adnan. And doesn't matter if you're not consistent. If you're not consistent, then and you don't do what is necessary each day to get better, then it doesn't really matter, does it? It's like, so I would just say that you are you're doing just fine, and you're doing very well, Adnan. Just keep up the good work. I mean, like, you just got to stay consistent over time. Hopefully we give you tools that will make that easier for you. But more than anything is just getting a little bit better at Chinese today than you were yesterday, and do that for enough days in a row. Okay. All right. So looking at the comments here, I've answered everything that came in through the 3 channels here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and finish it up 10 minutes early today. But thank you so much for all of your kind attention. And it was wonderful to chat with all of you. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I've been Phil Crimmins. And as you can see here on YouTube, it's not showing up on Zoom, but on YouTube, you can see that we have a place where you can sign up for free for Mandarin Blueprint. It's just mandarinblueprint.com. Head over there and you can get to our school community where you saw me answering questions, and you can also get the access to the first 20 levels of the blueprint for free. You can even earn access to Mandarin Speaking Listening Kickstarter. So check it out, and thank you so much, everyone. Peace.